All right, you guys, happy Monday. I have to tell you, you totally inundated me over the weekend with tips regarding Justin Bieber, Hailey Bieber, also incredible insights on how many people in Hollywood seem to have survived or not survived the very same thing. I received absolute confirmation, by the way, that we are on the right path regarding Justin Bieber and his fight for his freedom from Hollywood. And this is probably the most interesting thing which has transpired. Harley Pasternak, Ye's trainer, yeah, has blocked me on social media. And we were talking about him on Thursday. Now I'm blocked. And I then decided to go down the Prince rabbit hole. So we're going to discuss that as well. Also, I've never had anyone expressly demand that I be put into prison for my speech before, but rather shockingly, Trump's former ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, is now suggesting that me and Tucker Carlson should be arrested and sent to prison. I'm not kidding. I'm going to show you a clip. It's unbelievable. It looks like I'm going to have to maybe get ready to give birth in prison. Anyways, welcome back to Candace. Ladies and gentlemen, I am shaken, shooketh to my core, okay? Harley Pasternak has blocked me on Insta. I guess that's better than him drugging me and threatening to take me and away from my children, take me back to La La Land because play dates with the kids are just not going to be the same. We should probably discuss how we got there because that is a pretty crazy development. How did we get there where Harley Pasternak, who definitely has links to the deep state, is blocking little old me? Well, it's probably because we have been noticing some things over here. Obviously, on Thursday, we started unpacking the Bieber plot. I went on a tip, a very strong tip that Bieber's actually waging a private battle. And I just spiritually felt when I was reading the headlines, like, where have I seen this all before? Suddenly, a person finds Christ, and the next thing you know, we're being told he's crazy, he's on drugs, his relationship is being monitored every second by people in the media who are essentially trying to create a rift between him and his wife. So let's dial this back a bit. Let me ask you guys a pretty basic question. How many times, realistically, can a major successful artist that is engaged in a fight for their freedom suddenly become insane, drug addicted, and then die relatively young? Okay, if you just had to put it within some odds, what would you say the odds are on that? Now, I want to be clear, I had never been down the Prince rabbit hole, and I'm not totally there yet. I'm just beginning. And I did not realize that you can quite literally draw a direct line from Prince to Michael Jackson, to Ye, and then now to Justin Bieber and the things that they have been saying and what they are trying to do. Now, I did not grow up in a Prince household beyond a couple of his major hits, namely Raspberry Beret and When Doves Cry. So when he died on April 21st of 2016, at the very young age of 57, I did not venture to look beyond the media headlines in terms of that story. I just registered the official story. The official story was that he died of a drug overdose, an accidental opioid overdose. This is from the New York Times. They said, quote, Prince was found dead in the elevator of his home in Chanhassen, Minnesota on April 25th, 2016. By Mr. Kirk Johnson and others after he ingested the fatal amount of fentanyl, which is often used to manufacture counterfeit pills that are sold on the black market as oxycodone and other pain relievers. Okay, so that's the official story. What is the unofficial story? What is the unofficial story of Prince? Well, I'm just learning that throughout his entire career, this is the guy who quite literally turned his name into a symbol so that record executives could not benefit off of his name. Like he was willing to just be a symbol so that he could have ownership over his name. He was constantly at war with the executives at the record labels. And I want to show you this clip of him discussing how he viewed record labels. This is from 2004. Take a listen.
Ever since my third album, I wasn't really taking large advances from the recording companies. I was recording the albums myself in my own studio. So the way I looked at it, I owned the work because I paid for it. And I did all the work. I created it, so I felt like it should belong to me. That said, the companies felt otherwise, and they would always hold this contract up and say, well, you signed it. And I say, well, I understand that. It's not like I want to leave. I just want to, talk about this thing and see if we can't make it more fair. of course they wouldn't change, because if they changed, they wouldn't really exist. And that's kind of the situation we're in right today. They're not going to exist much longer. If we can work together, then it's going to be, you know, everybody will kind of move into a situation where they do what it is that they're qualified to do. If they're going to be indeed a delivery service, then that's fine. But even FedEx doesn't say that they own the thing that they ship, you know, right?
Actually such an interesting point that I had never even thought of. Like, how did the record labels just decide that they own your voice? They should be operating like FedEx. Like, we can distribute your music, but you don't own the thing that you are distributing, similar to FedEx. He also discussed very early on something that we now know to be quite intentional when we think about the MK Ultra program, but just the degeneration of music over time. Like, you know, people were playing instruments, people had these nice themes that they were singing about, and suddenly there was this radical shift, and music has become increasingly more raunchy and more pornographic. Well, he was early to that game, and here's what he had to say to MTV News about that degeneration. Take a listen.
What was it that you were listening to in music today that made you say, I've got to put some more stuff out there? You have to do this.
Mainly I sensed a great deal of negativity and entropy in the music. There's a disintegration going on that we really have to address. Our values have been lessened to a great degree. VH1's been pretty cool. They don't show too much craziness on their channel, but other Viacom channels do. So I think that we should address this as a community as to what it's doing to the culture. People can say all they want to, that there's no reason for these kids to listen to music and then go shoot somebody. But, you know, there's something that's triggering these buttons.
Just incredible, because, like, I'm just telling you, this is the first time that I've ever heard this, because I didn't follow Prince in his musical career. And I just can't believe that he was having this exact same discussion that we know Michael Jackson was having and then Ye was having. And just to show this to you again, I know I showed it to you on Thursday. Let's just listen to what Michael Jackson was saying about these same record labels.
Record companies really, really do conspire against their artists. They steal, they cheat, they do whatever they can, especially the black artists. Sony, Tommy Mottola. Tommy Mottola is the president of the record division. He is a mean, he's a racist, and he's very, very, very devilish.
And, you know, YouTube last year took down, I still never got clarity on why they did this, but they took down my interview with Ye in the midst of all of the fire when he was being called crazy by the press. I sat him down at my home and just had a discussion with him because I wanted to sort of capture that moment. And believe it or not, he was talking about the exact same thing, this treatment of artists, really making it sound like a modern form of slavery. Here is Ye and what he had to say in 2022.
We can't just say, oh, it's okay for people to like super complicate deals and to collude on deals and to not look at us as human beings, as artists and athletes and actors, that we have to be willing to like stand up for that to be able to change something. And we need to come together as a society to be the first civilization that actually became civil.
Gosh, it all sounds so reasonable, right? When you hear it like that, but that's not what the media tells us about these people. I mean, when you start speaking like that as an artist or as a podcaster or as somebody who's within any kind of contract, suddenly the media comes down on you hard. And like we said, wacko jacko. Here's a collage of some headlines. Here's Justin Bieber, a recent collage of the headlines that are coming at him right now. And I think the message is pretty clear. If they cannot control you, they will ruin you, okay? They'll say you are on drugs or say you're having a mental break. The timing of this discussion, by the way, is rather serendipitous because this week we're getting into our second book of my book club, which is Hollywood Babylon. And we had pre-picked this book, not knowing everything that would be going on with Justin Bieber and the conversation that we would be having. But this book really speaks about how Hollywood became Hollywood, about how it was founded. And if you believe Kenneth Anger, then Hollywood was definitively, that's the author of the book, Kenneth Anger, then Hollywood was definitively started by gang members. And I see no reason after having read this book to contradict anything that meaningfully contradicts what he says. The amount of deaths, the murders, the shootings, the convenient overdoses, the pornography, the blackmail. The book introduces us to all of the main players at that time: Paramount Studios, Metro Goldwyn, and Meyer, MGM. And it tells you who exactly was at the top of those studios, namely a guy named Joe Pasternak, Louis B. Mayer, and Sam Katz. These were the guys who were at the beginning of Hollywood. And I'm very much interested today in Joe Pasternak, right? Because I had begun wondering out loud to myself if it was plausible that this guy, who had everything to do with the founding of Hollywood, might be related to Harley Pasternak, the guy who was just gonna take Ye back to La La Land as a gym trainer. It just seems to me that every time I come across a connection to the CIA and Hollywood and mind control, I come across the last name Pasternak. Obviously, you saw last week, even when we were speaking about that declassified document from MK Ultra, the guy who we couldn't find a picture of, he was a Pasternak. And we have Joe Pasternak over in Hollywood who's running everything. And we know for a fact that he too worked with the CIA to popularize a book called Dr. Zhivago, which I should mention, that book was written by his Russian cousin. So Joe Pasternak and the author of this book, Boris Pasternak, were actually cousins. I found that out this weekend. A lot of Pasternaks in the mix when it comes to the CIA. Check out this 2014 headline from The Guardian pertaining to that book, Dr. Zhivago. It reads, the CIA used Dr. Zhivago as a literary weapon during the Cold War. And it tells us that more than 100 newly declassified documents in the U.S. have revealed how the CIA printed Russian language copies of Boris Pasternak's classic novel, Dr. Zhivago, during the Cold War in an attempt to sow unrest among Soviet citizens. The CIA published a hardback Russian language edition of Dr. Zhivago in the Netherlands and a miniature paperback edition at its own headquarters, making sure that, quote, the hand of the United States government was not to be shown in any manner, reveal the documents. It then pressed copies into the hands of Soviet citizens at the 1958 Brussels Universal and International Exposition, while agents who had contact with Soviet tourists and officials in the West passed out the miniature edition. Okay, so just to be clear, CIA began distributing copies of this book, Dr. Zhivago, throughout the USSR in the late 1950s as a weapon of war to make Soviets question their government and similarly to make us Americans and those in the West understand who our enemies were. Tale as old as time. They want to go to war with somebody. First, they have to propagandize us. Hollywood and the government have always had a unique relationship. Movies and songs that are being produced for the purpose of propaganda and social engineering. And this is where Joe Pasternak steps in. He would know because he's the person that made Dr. Zhivago a winning film in Hollywood, literally, okay? In 1966, Joe Pasternak put on the first ever color presentation of the Oscar Awards show. Okay, this is an actual article from that time. It says, Oscar show scheduled next Monday. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences will be throwing the book at its audience when the first color presentation of the annual Oscar show hits the nation's television screens the night of April 18th. It mentions how this is being thrown on all throughout this article by Joe Pasternak, the producer of this year's Oscar cast. And guess what happened that year? Dr. Zhivago took home a ton of awards. It won for Best Art Direction, Best Color Cinematography, Best Art Design, Best Screenplay Writing, you name it, okay? So you can imagine that people at this time who had no idea that this was a government operation, which included Joe Pasternak and his cousin, okay, People at this time must have assumed that it was all organic. You go to the Oscars, you watch the Grammys, you think it's all organic. But in reality, the American population was being intentionally engaged in propaganda. So I hate to say this, but Kanye was right after all when he said that award shows are fake. They are fake. This is about social engineering. You are the product. Your mind is the product. So I started thinking over this weekend, what if we just stopped for 1 second accusing all of these artists of being crazy, and instead we started actually investigating some of the things that they've been saying, right? They've been saying, Kanye, for example, that there are gangs that still control Hollywood and that you aren't allowed to stand up to the gangs without being ruined financially, reputationally, and that at very convenient times, the world will suddenly learn that you're actually a drug addict or experiencing a mental break. Also, I have to just add this into the mix. Isn't it also sort of weird that it seems to be a common thread in all these stories that when people begin embracing Christianity, they're accused of suffering a psychotic break? Because that's what's happening to Justin Bieber right now. It's like he's drawing closer to Christ and we're being told, no, he's just lost his mind and he's a druggie and he's broke, okay? That seems weird. And that is specifically what Ye said happened to him. It was the reason he said that Harley put him in the hospital, because Ye began quoting the Bible and reading the Bible. And so he said, we got to call an ambulance if something's gone wrong with you. Here is Ye describing that moment.
Actually, the day when they put me in the hospital, I had started reading the Bible really heavy and rewriting Bible verses. And when the Jewish trainer saw, and you're like looking like, well, that sounds pretty bipolar. But the Jewish trainer saw that, put me in the hospital, and then said, and then put it in the press.
He's referring to Harley Pasternak, and Harley Pasternak then put it into TMZ that he had suffered a psychotic break when he was writing Bible verses. Now, Ye also tweeted this. He tweeted, quote, "I was told that if I expose the truth of the bad business practices, everything is going to be taken from me, including my Black children. And everyone has now bore witness to the public Emmett Tilling of Ye. But God has put something on my heart not to back down." Okay. And now that I'm thinking about it, it's weird because that's what happened to me too. Such a simple phrase. All I said was Christ is king. And my gosh, did I lose so much. Actually, quite frankly, I think I gained a lot. But it was a scandal that still won't die. There's still reports being produced by the likes of Jordan Peterson on why you can't say Christ is king, okay? It was followed by people who were trying to convince the public back in 2024 that I was suffering from a postpartum psychosis. I'm just showing you 3 tweets to that effect from last year because it's incredible to reflect upon. This person, Avi Weiss, is it possible that Candace is having postpartum psychosis? Joshua Nebo writes, "I've said it before and I'll say it again. Candace is suffering from legit psychosis and needs mental health intervention." Lastly, this person, Get Real, wrote in August, "Somebody get Candace some urgent psychological help. She's actually developing psychosis." What a weird trend. You just diagnose a person you've never met and never seen, and they try to convince you that the people are having mental breaks when they say things they don't like. It's weird because it's almost like the people that are doing this are partaking in something that I wouldn't even call a faith, but clearly something that must run counter to Christ. It's interesting, even more so because Kenneth Anger, the author of Hollywood Babylon, was very much a member of the elite, and he said that they all worshiped the occult. So it ain't Judaism, it ain't Christianity, but it's the occult. And he would know because he was one of them until the day he died. He believed in Black ceremonial magic. He believed in the occult, and he was interested in works pertaining to blood sacrifice. I mean, he's a total character, and yet somehow was allowed to become this like a big guy in Hollywood. But like I said, we'll get more into that in the book club. That's not YouTube safe. But it is interesting, right? I should also mention that the media says that Kenneth Anger's book has long been debunked. So don't even think about it. Don't even think about reading it. Just kidding. We're going to read it anyways, because when the media says something has been debunked, it usually hasn't been. Anyways, I'm really starting to wonder now about Harley Pasternak, right? And if he somehow belongs in this Hollywood CIA link together family tree. So I'll tell you what I did. I decided to just put together a little family tree for Harley Pasternak, and I'll tell you what I found. First and foremost, like I told you, Harley blocked me on Instagram. Here's proof of that. This is what I see. I see no posts, and I thought it was so weird when I was going to go through every single post he's ever posted. Okay, fair. He knew what I was going to do. He knew he's watching the show. He knows I like timelines, but he blocked me. I thought that was weird, but I was able to find old posts of his, and I'm just beginning this process. Here's an old post about his time spent in the Canadian military. He wrote, from 1994 to 1997, I was an exercise nutrition scientist in the military. I worked in a laboratory that focused on the effects of different drugs and foods on soldiers' ability to run faster, jump higher, and stay awake longer. I did not have a gun. I never rode in a tank. I never saw enemy fire, and my life was never in any danger. On the other hand, tens of thousands of brave men and women soldiers risk their lives to protect ours. I am eternally grateful to all of you who have served to protect our safety and freedom. Thank you so much. So, yes, he was involved in drugging people and seeing what the effects of those drugs were. I also was able to find, while I was looking just briefly through his family tree, wondering if he could be related to Joe Pasternak of MGM or Boris Pasternak, his cousin. I found that he had mentioned that his grandma, Lucy, had survived the Holocaust. And I can show you that here, blocking out the faces of his family because it doesn't matter, but he's holding a picture of his grandmother, Lucy, and he said, this photo is of my great-grandmother, Lucy Pasternak. She was from Transylvania and survived Auschwitz. A great deal of who I am today is because of who she was. Okay. I'm going to flag that for you because I was not able to confirm that information. And I'm going to show you this tree because actually it's usually quite simple to confirm information as it pertains to the Holocaust. They've done an incredible job documenting all the victims. And I was able to confirm that her sister, Lucy's sister, allegedly survived Auschwitz, but I could not find Lucy herself. So I'm just asking the public to help me make that connection because the contrary, I found interesting. I found information that it was just her sister. But anyways, this is his family tree. Harley Pasternak, again, we're working to confirm this. His parents are public. He has posted them publicly. They do work publicly. So this was not like a find where we were doxing someone or anything. His mother, Barbara, his dad's name is Joe. And what was really interesting is Joe's mother, as you can see here, is Lucy Pasternak. Her name was Litsi, formerly Moldovan. I was able to discover that her sister's name is Magda Adler, formerly Moldovan of Israel. I'll show you how. But then the grandfather, not a single trace. One mention on a site that his nickname may have been Shimmy, but I can't find a single trace of the grandfather. And I'm wondering if that grandfather could have been a son of the original Joe Pasternak. Hey, even looking at these dates, it's totally plausible that Joe Pasternak had an affair with Lucy. I don't know. I just feel like somehow this is supposed to connect, that this family tree is supposed to connect. If you're listening to this on audio, you're going to have to go onto YouTube and look at this family tree. But that missing grandfather kind of really bugs me. And so I'm going to ask you guys to send tips at CandaceOwens.com because we then began looking into Lucy, thinking it's going to be very easy to find who her husband is. You're telling me you got an Auschwitz survivor and you have kids that are very involved. Harley has a couple of brothers. They're all very involved. And I'm sure they've mentioned their grandfather somewhere. No, we couldn't find it, even in databases where we were able to find information about Lucy. And here's what we have found thus far on Lucy. His grandmother, who he says survived Auschwitz. Again, just looking for somebody to confirm that. Maybe she had a different name, but I only have her as Litsi. She went as Lucy, and I ain't got any other name there. So I'm very curious about that. We have Lucy mentioned in a newspaper as having owned an art gallery. This is a Canadian newspaper, and it's in Montreal, which makes sense. This is where Harvey is from, that she was the manager of a gallery in 1970. So a manager of a gallery on Ville Marie in Montreal, and she is just commenting on a portrait here. We have found that. We have Lucy again. We know this is the right person, mentioned in the birth of Harley's brother. And what's interesting about this, right? So it mentions his parents, Joe and Barbara, are proud to announce the arrival of their son, weighing 8 pounds, 13 ounces, on January 19th of 1983 at 3:16 p.m. But it says first grandchild of Lucy Pasternak of Montreal. That's weird because Harley was born. Harley's mentioned in the next line. Brother Harley, mother and father doing fine. So how could it be Lucy Pasternak's first grandchild if Harley was born? Now this, it's a newspaper. They could have gotten something wrong. Special thanks to Dr. Bernstein and staff at Mount Sinai Hospital. Thought it was a weird typo, but I just wanted to draw your attention to that. Then we have the correct Lucy again in her obituary. And every obituary that we found, it didn't mention that she had survived Auschwitz or that, that she was a Holocaust survivor, which I flagged as very interesting. That's why I'm asking the public to send me information. I know there are people that dedicate their entire lives to documenting that stuff. And I've checked those websites. It says Lucy Pasternak on Tuesday, does not mention her husband again. Lucy Pasternak, loving mother and mother-in-law of Joe and Barbara, devoted grandmother to Harley, Jesse, and Bobby, dear sister of Magda Adler of Israel. And then it tells us where the service is going to be. No mention of her late husband. That's a hole I got to fill, guys. Okay. So I'm opening up tips at CandaceOwens.com looking for that missing Pasternak that was married to Lucy, who Harley Pasternak says survived Auschwitz. And I have been unable to confirm that just yet. And like I said, the records on that are very tight. And usually it's a very quick, there's videos, lists, everything. And I could not find this woman, but I was able to find her sister and confirm that her sister, Magda Adler of Israel, survived the Holocaust. So you guys can help me with that. Pull up that chart again one more time so they can see it, because now I am really honing in on what's going on here in Hollywood, the CIA. You guys just take that. We are looking for this person who potentially went by the nickname Shimmy, which is what we were able to find on the site. Is it possible Joe and Lucy, like maybe it's not a great grandpa up there and it's Joe by a different name? He traveled extensively. I'm just wondering, it just seems weird not to include that in an obituary or to include that or speak about that publicly. But I'm thinking whatever is going on in Hollywood has been going on for a very long time. Now, what does this all mean? Well, first and foremost, it means it's time for you guys to wake up. I'll tell you that for free. It means that Justin Bieber is fighting a very scary private battle right now, okay? If I am fearful for his life, it's not because I believe he's on drugs. I'll tell you that for free. It's because I've read too many of these books. I know too much about the late Joe Pasternak. I know too much about the founding of Hollywood. I know too much about all of these artists who conveniently have drug overdoses when they're at the peak of these fights. And now that these fights, like I mentioned to you, are taking place privately and through arbitration and not publicly, it actually puts these individuals more at risk. And I think that we really should begin by understanding who has been controlling Hollywood for a very long time. Because if we can connect Harley Pasternak to Joe Pasternak, and I think we're close here, and things are going to start to get very interesting. Very, very interesting. Anyways, you guys know me. I am on it either way. I appreciate you guys constantly supporting the show, and we will pause our investigation there and throw it to some sponsors. First one, Goldco, because over the last month, we have truly seen how much wasteful spending the last administration was doing. While the Fed had been working to rein in inflation, the broader economy is still feeling the effects, particularly in everyday items like food, housing, and healthcare. If you've been worried about your savings or retirement, it's time to take a look at diversifying your savings with Goldco. Gold has been recognized as a store of wealth for thousands of years. Unlike other assets, its value is not tied to the performance of any company or government, making it less susceptible to the volatility of the financial markets. Goldco has made buying metals very simple. They're huge supporters of the show, and they're very good at what they do. So right now you can get a free 2025 gold and silver kit jam-packed with great information about buying precious metals. You could also qualify for up to a 10% instant match in bonus silver. It's really a great deal, especially right now. So go to CandaceLikesGold.com to learn more. That's CandaceLikesGold.com. Also, is my skin glowing or what? It's never too late to continue embracing positive change in your life. And if you're ready to maintain that new year, new me momentum, then look no further than Nimi Skincare. You guys know I use them. From gentle formulas to luxurious treatments, Nimi offers everything that you could need to keep your skin glowing. Right now, if you use code Candace10 at checkout, you will enjoy 10% off your order. So whether you're pampering yourself or surprising a loved one, now is the perfect opportunity to try Nimi's transformative skincare at a great price. Nimi Skincare isn't just another beauty brand. It's a celebration of faith, family, and freedom. Products are all made here in the USA. And if you're looking for something that's extra gentle, they also have a clean, fragrance-free formulas that are ideal for sensitive skin and those seeking a pure approach to self-care. So don't forget to use code Candace10 today at nimiskincare.com. That's spelled N-I-M-I skincare.com, promo code Candace10, and you'll save 10% on your purchase. You can give yourself or someone else the gift of glowing, refreshed skin and keep that fresh start feeling going strong well into 2025. nimiskincare.com, promo code Candace10. Okay, this debate seemingly has broken the internet, so we have to discuss it. I actually, 125,000 tweets pertaining to the Douglas Murray versus Dave Smith debate, which was released, I think, on Friday on Joe Rogan. It might have been Thursday. Actually, I think it was Thursday of last week. X, as I mentioned, was positively dominated by this discussion surrounding the debate. And I want to say right at the top of this, I actually know both of these gentlemen. I know Douglas Murray because he is from the same circles as my husband in London, the highfalutin circles of London. And I have had dinner with him. I've been around him, and he's very kind. And I think that that's great because it's never great to go into trying to judge a debate when you just don't like somebody, you know, just like I don't like Douglas Murray. He's actually always been very lovely to me and always very kind to me. And he's one of those people that I can say that even though I very much disagree with him, I don't then say, well, he's a terrible human being. But what was happening and what was at root of this discussion was credentialism. Essentially, the first 45 minutes of this debate, if you haven't seen it, and they were supposed to be debating what's happening in Israel, Gaza, it was really spent with Douglas Murray suggesting, I would say, outright saying that people need to have better expertise on various subjects before they can engage in discussion about those subjects, and he was really kind of condemning Joe Rogan here. They shouldn't even be platformed. And he specifically called out Ian Carroll, and he called out historian Daryl Cooper, which I was confused about because I think Daryl Cooper is great. But here is what Douglas Murray had to say.
If you're going to interview historians of the conflict or historians in general, why would you get somebody like Ian Carroll?
Yeah, but Ian Carroll, I didn't bring him on for that purpose. I brought him on because I want to find out, like, how does one get involved in the whole conspiracy theory business? Because his whole thing is just conspiracies.
Sure.
You know?
But do you have any, there's been a tilt in the conversation, in both conversations in the last couple of years, and it's largely to do with people who have appointed themselves experts who are not experts.
So, yeah, Ian Carroll, I don't think has appointed himself an expert. I just think that he's somebody who's willing to ask questions and to introduce people to information. And I would offer that post-COVID, I think the idea of expertise has been completely shattered. I think we can all agree post-COVID, the idea of expertise has been shattered because all they offered us was this: you can't say this because you're not a doctor. You can't say this because you don't understand. You're not in the emergency rooms. What do you know about vaccines? And then it ended up being the regular people who were asking meaningful questions and not prepared to instantly roll up their sleeves because the government mandated it, wound up being correct despite the censorship. So we understood that we had to have more conversation, not less conversation. We actually need to hear independent voices that aren't a part of the organ of media or the organ of pharma. But the part that I think in terms of this debate between him and Dave Smith that I and many others were especially confused by is the idea that you need to physically visit a place before you can engage in a discussion about it. Take a listen.
Have you been to the crossing points?
No.
When were you last there at all?
I've never been.
You've never been?
Well, am I not allowed to talk about it now? Have you ever been to Nazi Germany? Are you allowed to have feelings about them?
You can't time travel, but you
Well,
can.
right.
But you can travel.
Okay, but so what? So what's the point? Like,
No,
okay.
I find that
Lots
very...
of people have been there and agree with me, and lots of people have been there and agree with you.
Yeah, but
so
if
I don't
you're
know
going
what
to
the...
spend a year and a half talking about a place, you should at least do the courtesy of visiting it.
all right. I just think this is a non-argument.
You don't
but
think?
Okay. No, I think it's a non-argument.
But if you're an
Well, you have to go and touch the ground. To
No,
be
I
able
think
talk
you have
about
to
it?
see. I think it's a good idea to see stuff, particularly if you
okay.
spend a career talking about something. Yes. I have a journalistic rule of trying never to talk about a country even in passing unless I've at least been there.
Okay.
It's a
But that's
sort of
not
normal it's a normal thing to do. You're talking about you're talking about crossing points. And not only have you never been to a crossing point in either Egypt or in Israel, but you've never even been to the region.
Okay. Again, I
How
think this is
can
a
you-
non-argument.
Hang
I
on,
don't understand.
No, it's not a non-argument.
Yeah, it is.
It's not a non-argument if you're insisting that you're an expert of some kind, or not claiming you're an expert, but still talking about it, about the provisions going into Gaza or not, if you've never seen any of this going on.
So you're not
That's
allowed to
amazing
speak
to
about
me.
things that you've read about. You can only speak about things that you've seen with your own eyes.
You can talk about what you want,
Uh-huh.
as you're proving. But that is a different matter from spending an awfully long amount of time talking about an issue in a region you haven't even had the courtesy to visit.
So I'm genuinely not sure what that argument means, and I would definitely love for him to expand upon that, because that would virtually exclude everyone ever right, from being able to engage in a debate about anything, right? Unless you have money. Who's got the money to be traveling around the world so that we can visit to see the various places that all of our tax dollars are going? Also, I have actually been to Israel, and I would not cite myself as somebody who is more educated than Dave Smith on this topic. Absolutely not. In fact, I routinely text Dave Smith and ask him questions as I've been learning about this topic. I don't understand. I mean, if my tax dollars have to go towards that, I would imagine that I have a right to speak about it, and I shouldn't just have to fund myself getting out there. I really just didn't understand this. I don't think, as an example, that Australia should have been locked down in the way that it was locking down its citizens during COVID. I've never been to Australia. I don't think my tax dollars should be sent to Ukraine at this moment, because they can't even account for all the billions that we've already given them. They just lost it. It went into a dark hole. We've sent them all this money, and now these Ukrainian oligarchs are popping up, buying yachts in Saint Tropez. I saw them, okay? They're buying all of these Russian yachts. Never been to Ukraine. Think I have a right to say that and to keep harping on this fact that we need to stop giving money to these countries when it seems like they're just laundering it and putting it elsewhere. I don't think our government, looking into the past, should have dropped a bomb on praying Catholics in Nagasaki. I don't think that did anything to end the war. And I'd be happy to engage in a debate with any person that thinks that it has. Never been to Nagasaki. I don't think we should be funding LGBTQ programs in Pakistan. We are. Never been to Pakistan. I don't think, perhaps most ludicrously, when Rand Paul released his list of government excess spending that he does annually, and he told us that our government was funding Japanese quails. They were giving Japanese quails cocaine to see if it increased their sex drive. I don't think we should be doing that. I think it's absurd. And I thought that before I went to Japan for the first time last year. And when I went to Japan, I didn't see any Japanese quails, but did it make me any more or less of an expert or any more qualified to discuss whether or not we should be giving them cocaine? Because that registers to most people as an issue of basic morality. And I would argue also of extreme financial stupidity, like just common sense. I don't need to get on a plane to go observe a Japanese quail high on cocaine to tell you that I don't think we should be funding that. You know, I just have to have an ability to think in general. And I'm not sure exactly, and where I would push back here as well, what makes somebody an expert on something? Is it physically going someplace? Is it a degree that confers onto you some special powers? Is it money, having the money to visit places and to check it off and say, I visited this many places, and so now I'm an expert, or I can at least, engage in a topic that I care about? I think a lot of people who even are huge fans of Douglas Murray. And by the way, like I said, I have really enjoyed him personally. He's always been very kind to me. He's not like a lot of the people who engage in this ultra Zionism that drive me insane and who I can tell you are bad people. Like I'm not like putting him in the category of Seth Dillon and like Joel Berry of the Babylon Bee. He's very enjoyable. And so I was very surprised to hear him argue in this style. And I think even the people who are ultra Zionists said the same thing, that they were kind of confused by this line of argument. It seems more like an effort to control speech. And just to be clear, speech, if it's true, it doesn't really matter who the speaker is or where they've been or how many passport stamps they have. And even YouTuber God Saad, who's legitimately lost his mind and just rants and raves about how everything is anti-Semitic, had a pretty reasonable take about this debate. And he is also, he's a massive fan of Douglas Murray, has had him on his show multiple times, and here's what he had to say.
I thought it would have been probably better if he just said, here are 10 things that you guys espoused, and let me address how each of them is complete nonsense, rather than saying, you know, we need historians to talk about these positions or people who have the right credentials. I think that's the wrong reflex to have. I think it's much better to judge people based on the ideas that they espouse. And earlier today, I put up a post on my X feed where I said, look, in Boolean algebra, you can test or establish whether a statement is true or false. It's binary system based on axiomatic truths, based on axiomatic properties, right? And that Boolean algebra statement is true or false irrespective of whomever writes it down and whomever reads it. And so by a similar analogical reasoning, a statement is true or false whether it's a plumber who said it or a eminent historian or a fancy professor. As a matter of fact, as I have explained repeatedly, and certainly the parasitic mind, all of the parasitic ideas that I discuss in the parasitic mind stem from professors. And in channeling the spirit of Orwell, it takes intellectuals to come up with some of the dumbest ideas.
And really, that's Thomas Sowell, who has done extensive research on showing you how academics and professors and the people who perceive themselves to be like the intellectual elite, the academia, have put forth the worst ideas in the world that have led to so many people being killed. Eugenics, people that were behind eugenics, all the things that they have done, and they do this with this sort of academic snobbery, is the reason why we have so much suffering worldwide. Like I said, Thomas Sowell has done extensive, brilliant work on that, talking about really speaking to the Harvard types and the Stanford types. And so it doesn't make me comfortable that we're seeing sort of this emergence of people who are beginning to think that only some people are capable of thinking. I think people are drawn to Ian Carroll because he's an imperfect character, because he's willing to at least investigate things and say when he gets things wrong, similar to me. If I'm looking for something, I ask for the public to help me find it. We have a right to investigate and to think. And Douglas Murray used to very much hold that position. Here he is on Lex Fridman back in 2022.
One argument they say is you, Douglas Murray, and you, Lex Fridman, don't have the right to talk about race and racism in America. It is our struggle. You are from a privileged class of people that don't know what it's like to be a black man or woman in America walking down the street.
I really resent that form of argumentation.
Sure.
I really resent it. I have the right to talk about whatever the hell I want, and no one's going to stop me or try to intimidate me, or tell me that I can't simply because of my skin color. And I think that if I said to somebody else the other way around, it would be equally reprehensible. If I said, shut up, you have no right to criticize anything that Douglas Murray says because you've not got my skin color. Okay, it's not an exact comparison, but seriously, is that a reasonable form of argument? You haven't been through everything I've been through in my life, therefore you can't comment. No. In that case, nobody can talk about anything. We might as well pack up, go home, and isolate ourselves.
For example, Holocaust survivors.
Yes.
There is a sense in which maybe a basic sense of civility when a Holocaust survivor is speaking about their experience of the Holocaust than an intellectual from a very different part of the world that's simply writing about nuanced geopolitics of World War II just should not interrupt the Holocaust survivor.
We physically interrupt them if they're telling their
with
story.
words, with logic and reason, that the experience of the Holocaust survivor somehow fundamentally has a deeper understanding of the humanity and the injustice of the.
Well, first of all, again, we're in even deeper waters now, but in terms of wanting to listen to another person who has experienced something, yes, but not endlessly. Not endlessly. I mean, there are some people who've written about there are people who've written about the Holocaust who didn't experience the Holocaust and have written about it better than people who did. It's not.
That's great.
This idea that the lived experience, to use this terrible modern jargon, as if there's another type, this idea that the lived experience has to triumph over everything else is not always correct.
I very much agree with everything that he said there. So you wonder what has caused a shift in his viewpoints, or maybe it's not. Maybe I'm getting it wrong. It's not a shift in his viewpoints, and he can better explain why he now thinks that people have to have certain experiences in order to engage in a discussion. And sometimes discussion is just being about, again, basic morality, basic principles. Should children and women be blown up into perpetuity as a response? That feels like a basic moral issue for me. This is going to get even crazier, you guys, because it does seem that we are constantly carving out these special territory for discussions pertaining to Israel. Like the smears are never more insane. And it's something to pay attention to on the right. I am telling you guys, what is happening right now is insane, right? They are trying to infringe upon our speech in ways that are getting very dark and very creepy. David Friedman, who was Trump's former U.S. ambassador in the first term, former U.S. ambassador to Israel, essentially is praising this current administration for jailing and deporting critics of Israel, and was specifically asked about me and Tucker Carlson, and he's calling for more deportation, jail, and the cutting of funding to anti-Semites, people that are openly discussing. This is going to be like Dave Smith in the future. Pay attention to this. Where are all of those free speech people who grifted off of free speech and who won't say anything? And recognizing that this current administration is taking a turn that is quite dark, okay? It is not what we signed up for. We are supposed to be the people who defend speech. So why is it now I'm finding myself in agreement with Anna Kasparian and Cenk over at the Young Turks, who are calling out what is happening and how suddenly there is this squeeze on speech only as it pertains to the special topic of Israel? Take a listen to what Anna had to say on the Young Turks.
David Friedman, who actually was Trump's ambassador to Israel in his first term, he doesn't just stop at progressives and their critique of Israel. He's also focusing on the right wing as well. And I suspect that this is waking the right wing up.
Yeah, this is not going to play well.
Because if you think that free speech violations are only going to impact the left, you'd be mistaken. Take a look.
I condemn anti-Semitism on the right and on the left. I'm an equal opportunity condemner of anti-Semitism.
You're alluding to Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, none of them are any good on the right. On the left, I don't like any of these anti-Semites, and I'm not shy about it. There's no reason to think we're ever going to convince them, but we can deport them, we can put them in jail, we can make their lives miserable, we can cut off their funding, and that's what the Trump administration is doing for the first time.
Okay, now understand what he considers anti-Semitism. And by the way, you're an American citizen. If you are spewing anti-Semitic garbage, you're actually free to do that as long as you don't act on it, right? Free speech is a thing. Hate speech is protected under the First Amendment. This guy thinks that simply criticizing how Israel is prosecuting the war is already anti-Semitic. It's already anti-Semitism. And he wants to throw you in prison for it.
Yeah.
In prison for it.
And by the way, that was an answer to a question about Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. So we're not talking about student visas anymore.
Oh my God.
Now we're talking about core American podcasters, people in media on the right and the left. If you criticize Israel, he says, well, you have no heart and you have no mind. You have no heart because, of course, you should know when Israel slaughtered 15,000 children, it was the most moral thing to do. And if you dare disagree, we'll arrest you. And what did he say? Oh, we'll cut off your funding. By the way, he's like, it's anti-Semitic to say that the Jews would control speech in America. But if you dare cross Israel, we will cut off your funding, we will deport you, we will arrest you. But don't say it. If you say it, what I just said, I'm gonna call you an anti-Semite.
No, maybe I'll throw you in prison.
Okay, they're saying, well, we start with the left, but we're equal opportunity condemners.
Yeah.
So Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and everyone else, you start slightly criticizing Israel, we got a jail in Louisiana and then one in El Salvador that Israel can send you to via the US government.
It's insane, okay? It is insane. Time for Americans to wake up to what is happening, okay? Because our freedoms will be taken away very quickly. And yes, it is happening under this administration, okay? 1000% Trump is being surrounded by ultra-Zionists who are getting him to take stances that are running counter to freedom. And those of us that are calling it out, I don't care. I really don't care what you call me. I don't have to survive a Trump administration. My kids have to be able to grow up in a free country. I just can't. I will not tolerate it, whether it's happening on the left or the right. Anyways, you guys, before I get into some of your comments, can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. First, I'll remind you about American financing because interest rates have dropped and now it's time to take advantage. A lot of Americans are struggling to keep up with everyday bills, eggs, coffee. Many are reaching for the credit cards to pay for this. If you're a homeowner, interest rates have finally fallen into the fives. It's nearly a quarter of the average credit card rate. American financing is helping homeowners like you save an average of $800 a month by tapping into your home's equity line and wiping out high interest debt. And the best part is there are no upfront fees to get started. Credit card rates are insane. And if you're carrying a balance every month, you are stuck in an endless cycle. You can break free today by just calling American Financing and seeing how much you could be saving. And if you start right now, you may even be able to delay 2 mortgage payments. So call 800-795-1210. Again, that's 800-795-1210. Or you can visit americanfinancing.net/Owens. That's americanfinancing.net/Owens. All right, guys, let's get to some of your comments. Also want to remind you, by the way, about the book club. It's a perfect time to sign up if you have not already. We have tons of people that are part of the book club. You can go to CandaceOwens.com, hit the book club. You can get it overnight at Hollywood Babylon. We start tomorrow, that book. So we're ending chaos, kind of wrap it up, summarize what we've learned from it so that we can just, really drive home those points of what happened in the 60s. And then we will begin the discussion of Hollywood Babylon. So if we get to anything, it'll be the first chapter, but really wanting you to know who Kenneth Anger is, who the writer is. It's very important as we start getting into how Hollywood was founded and funded and what was going on. And essentially, because we weren't alive in the 20s and the 30s, they don't like you knowing how Hollywood was designed and who it was designed for and by. So it's going to be a very interesting read. Patmos, if you've realized how great the website is getting now that we have the live chat going for the book club, well, Patmos are the people that were behind CandaceOwens.com. They've revamped. It's been amazing. They're the most trusted alternative to big hosting with multiple data centers and a U.S. customer service base. They are providing us with tremendous value for all of our hosting and web development needs. So if big tech has got you down, you can discover why businesses save big and get better service by switching to Patmos. Visit patmos.tech to make the switch today. That's patmos.tech. All right, and book club, by the way, is at 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, in case you're wondering what time. So I will see you guys there. Okay, comments. Nadia writes, Candace, so many of us trust you and believe in you. Thank you for doing the Lord's work. Harley blocking you has guilty written all over it. No coincidence the Kardashians have access to someone like him. Like I said, I think a lot about the Kardashians now and the stuff that Kanye told me that sounded insane at the time. And I'm kind of working through my mind, still working on that, but something that will probably come up in the future. Rozbaz writes, thank you for speaking up also about Prince. He had helped so many, and it's about time people see he was a part of that agenda. Rest in power, Skipper. Hashtag fear the fro. What's that hashtag? Is that a thing? Sarah writes, seems like a lot of child stars die young of suicide or overdose. Girl, wait till we get to Hollywood Babylon. And when artists start speaking out or finding faith, they do seem to suddenly become crazy or addicts. Then they die within a few years of speaking out. That's how it goes. It's very antichrist. Tracy Bassett writes, isn't freedom of the press part of our Constitution? Total rhetorical question. Isn't freedom of the press part of our Constitution? Total rhetorical question. I think we just maybe copied that twice. I think she only said it once. Cynthia writes, I plan to homeschool, but how do I find sources that actually teach truth? Everything feels biased. History, science, even books and TV. I just want my kids raised on what's real, not rewritten. Yeah, well, if you're going to follow their academic program, then it's going to be biased. And that's why we have to research these things ourselves. We have to find our own books and, stick to the hard academics in terms of homeschooling. Teach your kids arithmetic, teach your kids how to write, how to read. And then when you want to get into history, you're going to have to do that work. You're going to have to do the work to find out what is the true story. And introducing them to various podcasts and allowing them to do some of the critical thinking when they hear different perspectives, finding great documentaries. It's usually the stuff that doesn't get the attention that you can find the most truth in. Hence us just even speaking about how we just accept a huge Hollywood blockbuster must be true. And then you realize the CIA has been behind all of this stuff and you're like, wait, this was just propaganda. We are all victims of severe propaganda. It's Archie writes, just wanted to say I'm 5 episodes into A Shot in the Dark. This is, in my opinion, the best work you've ever done. Thanks for doing this so us parents can get a starting point of information with resources to go deeper. Thank you for saying that, because I have long said that the most important work that I've ever done has been A Shot in the Dark. Every parent should watch it. It is worth whatever it is that it costs to download A Shot in the Dark. If you know nothing about vaccines and you're just being pressured by your doctor and you're feeling overwhelmed, you just had a child, every new parent should watch the series. It is not pushing you one way or the other. It is presenting you with actual evidence and actual proof of what these diseases were in the past, how effective the vaccines were, so that you can at least have a dialogue with your pediatrician and not just, well, you should do it because it's always been done. That's foolish. Your child has one body. You don't want to make a mistake and realize that you did it because you were peer pressured. True Fighter writes, as a Muslim, I pray for your safety and I always appreciate your truth telling. I also bought the anti-fem merch. Please never give up. And I wish you a blessed maternity leave. Thank you so much. Maxine writes, good morning, Candace from Australia. Additional to Ian, can you also have Brett and Tucker host your show? Oh, I wish I could have Tucker host my show. He's so much bigger and so much more popular than me. Also, Brett, I feel, she's like on a tour right now, and she's also just blowing up. And I know how hard it is to get started when you're doing your own thing. And she's just coming out of corporate media. So I doubt she would have time to juggle that. So, but it would be amazing. I would love to have Tucker host my show. I've got to do Tucker's show in the near future because he's fantastic. And I feel like I haven't seen him in a long time. Allie writes, love Ian Carroll, but we are going to miss you while you're on leave. Don't worry, I'll pop in a few times to say hi, maybe introduce you guys to the new baby. And don't forget, I'm still going to do the book club because I feel like that's chill and I can just have my baby on my chest. He'll be so new. He'll just be sleeping the whole time and you guys will be easy if I need to say, never mind, I got to go feed him. You'll let me leave. Again, remind you guys, book club is tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern. So check it out over at CandaceOwens.com. Great time to sign up and you can purchase Hollywood Babylon and get it overnighted to you, so that you can join it if you are interested. And don't forget to send me tips at CandaceOwens.com as we look for that missing relative of Harley Pasternak and also a confirmation of a Lucy Pasternak who survived Auschwitz. We do have confirmation that her sister, Magda Adler, did, but I cannot find that as it pertains to Lucy. All right, you guys, I think we covered a lot today. See you tomorrow.